Welcome to Dorset. Today we're in the forest and we're chasing wild garlic. Great to see you all again, guys. Thanks so much for joining me. Today we're taking a wander out and we've done a little bit of scouting and we've found a fantastic location, but it's unfortunately for us, it's private. We're actually on a footpath at the moment, but I found this beautiful view looking down towards some nice wild garlic as a pathway sweeps around, and it looks stunning. So I thought I'm going to come down here and try my best to nail a shot. Now, obviously, we could go over the gate, but it is private. I don't want to take the mickey here. I don't know the owners, so I'm decided I'm going to shoot it from the gate, keep it legal, and see what we can get. The shot itself, it looks like we could actually zoom in and get a reasonable sort of image anyway on this one, so I don't think there's any real need to go over the fence, but we're just going to make a little bit of a stop at this one, and then we're going to take a wander to a different location a little bit further on. Yeah, I couldn't resist this one. I just absolutely love that sweeping path. The garlic here, it's in full bloom. There's not lots and lots of it, but it does look really, really nice, and of course this path just really adds to that composition. And we've got some felled trees that have been sort of stacked up here, and I think they'll really add to a nice lead on this particular shot. So that's the plan. We're just going to wait for the light to come up at the moment, which the sun has risen, but it'll probably be a good sort of 10 to 15 minutes before we get any light actually into this forest area itself, as it's just got to clear the horizon and obviously get through the trees. But it's a really nice composition, and I couldn't resist stopping by just to get this one and see how we do. For the shot itself, we're going to focus about probably a third of the way into this scene to try and get everything front to back sharpness, and we're going to use an aperture of f/16 on here just to again keep that front to back sharpness in there. There's a little bit of breeze about, but this particular sort of area that we're shooting, I haven't got any real foliage in there, so I'm not going to really need to boost the ISO up that much at the moment. When we go further on to the forest and we've got sort of wild garlic and it's directly in front of us and it's going to be moving about, obviously we'll change that. But for the time being, I think, you know, we're going to concentrate on getting the best quality with it. I'm shooting on the 24-105 and I'm actually going to be at 105. I might swap it around later on to the 100-400 and just see if I can crop in a little tighter and whether it gives me a better shot. But to be honest, I really quite like the composition around about the 100-105 mark. So yeah, going to stick with that, see how it goes, and hopefully there'll be a reasonable image for it a little bit later on. But really do need that light at the moment to make it really pop. But the good thing with shooting these forests is even in overcast conditions as we've got today, if you don't get any light, you can take a good shot still here, and you can, you know, obviously edit a little bit of contrast into that shot. So it should be quite good, but it looks really beautiful. Where you've got the wild garlic stretching through on the path, it almost looks like it's snow on either side. It's fantastic. So really looking forward to seeing this shot once it's all done. Just been treated to a lovely little display of light just coming through the forest. There's not lots and lots, and it's not, you know, all diffused light or anything like that, but it does look beautiful. It's picking out little highlights and it's catching some of the wild garlic, some of the log pile, and the path that it sweeps down. So hopefully nailed a really nice shot. It's exactly what we've been after. And yeah, I think probably let's take a trip onto the other one. So come on, let's go. Welcome back. We've moved on to another forest now, and I think we nailed that first shot, but there wasn't an awful lot of other compositions there, so decided to move on, try something a little bit new. Behind me, we've got a beautiful beech tree, and it's got a lovely canopy just leaning over with a nice sweep of wild garlic running all the way through it. So I've been trying to shoot that one, and I've tried a variety of different heights on the tripod here, and eye level has pretty much proved the best one. And the reason that is because once you get really, really low, you lose that big long sweep of the wild garlic, and I really want to include all of that in there. So I've decided to go for sort of a higher height on the tripod just to include that. Also, the lower you get on this particular shot, the more sky you get in the shot. And I'm really trying to avoid that, to be honest, because I don't want those big sort of glaring hot spots that are at the top. And trying to expose for the rest of it is going to be a little bit difficult to try and match that sky, because I'm not using any filters or anything on here. So also been shooting at an ISO of around 400. And the reason I've done that is because there's a little bit of breeze coming in here. And as I say, these particular canopies, I really, really like them in the shot. So I've really wanted to include it. So it was necessary to go to an ISO of 400 and drop my aperture right the way down to f4, which is has an added bonus on this type of effect. When you're in a forest and you're shooting things like this, it will blur out a lot of everything behind, and it will give it that kind of dreamy, ethereal look that's really, really good in forest. It's also really good for adding a bit of separation in between the subject you're shooting and the other trees that are in the back. I have played around and I have shot some up to f16 as well, just to kind of make sure I'm getting the best out of shots. I had a look at both. They both have a quality to them, so yeah, they seem to be okay. So that's our second shot for the day, and we're going to keep moving down the forest and see what else we can find here. But it's absolutely stunning out today. There's not too much in the way of light here. It's just kind of right, really, for shooting this wild garlic. A little bit overcast, odd pocket of light coming through, but really, really nice altogether. So hopefully we'll have a reasonable day out of this one. Something I think is really worth touching on when you're in the forest is that literally moving just 1 or 2 feet to the left or to the right can be the difference between a composition and just nothing. And it's so surprising that, just moving it slightly further over can completely transform the shot. So it's really worth having a good look and taking a lot of time when you're in the forest to just fine tune these compositions. Don't forget, do a bit of edge patrol as well. Run your finger around the edge of your frame and just make sure that there's nothing sort of overhanging. You've not cropped out a tree or something like that. Just make sure it's a nice clean frame, and it will really, really give you a much, much better finished picture. One thing I think that's worth mentioning here is when I use my histogram, when I'm shooting something like a bluebell forest or a wild garlic forest, I always have it switched to the RGB mode. And the reason being, when you're in here, you're obviously going to get a much stronger sort of, green tone to it, and some potential yellows in there. And that can obviously give a little bit of a colour cast, but it's a good indication of seeing if the green channel is sort of clipped in there. You get a bit of a mixture of the green channel and the blue channel in here. The red channel, not so much, unless it's right on the knock-ins of sunrise or sunset. But yeah, it's well worth using an RGB histogram. Our next composition sees us use some nice natural lead lines, and we've got a beautiful path that leads down. We've just got a little bit of sunlight just coming up at the end. It looks stunning, and I'm using this path as a good lead into that nice light there. So yeah, that's our next image. Looks really, really nice. Hopefully we'll be able to nail it. Same settings pretty much as before. Shooting on this particular one, ISO 400, using f16, but I'm also going to do a couple of shots at f4 as well, just to try and get a little bit of variation in between it. The eagle-eyed viewers amongst you might recognise this one. It's the forest that I shot once before for a video previously, which I'll link up in the description down there. So if you want to see that, you can. But since I filmed that one, this forest, it's sadly had a lot of storm damage, and we've got some trees down. They're blocking the path, and the path had a particularly nice sweep looking up a hill, which is a beautiful shot. And unfortunately, this tree now blocks it, so there's very little we can do. But also looking around the forest, there's an awful lot of trees that are down, and it's making composition quite difficult, because you don't want to include some of these, sort of old dead trees. They're just not really particularly photogenic. So as I say, I'm sticking on the 24-105 at the moment, just to try and compress through that scene and to cut out some of the crap that's on the side, to be fair. But it seems to be working quite well. Looks reasonably nice, and yeah, we're sort of working our way round, just having a look, looking for compositions and just trying to frame out all of the sort of the debris and just keep it out and keep the shots as clean as possible. Worth noting, when I'm shooting something that hasn't got like a canopy hanging over it and it's just a tree trunk and maybe the wild garlic itself, I am dropping my ISO again and going back down to about 200 depending on the shot, because there's not so much movement in there, if at all. So obviously I want to get the best quality I can, but whilst there's any movement in the shot, I'm going to go high ISO, and I'm not adverse to going right the way up to sort of 1000 to 1200, something like that, in order to get this shot absolutely as I want it. When you're in the forest though, as long as you can keep your ISO, you know, as low as you possibly can, because it's a darker environment and you want to be able to bring out anything in post. So, you know, try and keep it low, but don't be too afraid to go high. As I say, 1000, 1200 on a modern camera, the sensors can cope with it absolutely easy. Just make sure you expose your image correctly and you should have no problem in post. I've moved a little bit further up the forest now and I'm just having a little bit of a scout round, and it's proven very, very difficult. There's an awful lot of debris up here, and it really is sort of getting in the way of shots really. I mean, obviously there is an option to try and move it, but I don't want to walk through any of this wild garlic. And I think, you know, as photographers, it just goes without saying really, you know, you've got to protect these forests, and there's no point in sort of stomping through them all. If there's a path there, fantastic. If there's not, it's just not available shot. So just, you know, leave it alone, frankly, and just make sure you protect all this wild garlic, because it does take an age to grow, and it's very, very easy to, you know, destroy a forest. And it's the last thing we want to do. I want to keep these around for as long as possible. There's the odd moment of light coming in and out here, and it can be a little bit frustrating. You know, 1 minute it's completely flat, and I don't mind shooting a forest when it's a little bit flat, but it's always nice to have that little bit of light in there. But when you get that really, really strong dappled light in there, it does become quite a nightmare to shoot. It's very, very contrasty, and it's not really what we want out of this shot. Obviously, the later in the morning that it gets, the harsher that light becomes. So, you know, we are starting to run out of time a little bit here now, and really and truly, it's probably only about half an hour to an hour left in it maximum. But yeah, once that light really starts to come through, it's time to call it quits. But there's still some shots to be had. Going to persevere and just looking for compositions at the moment. And one of the things I'm trying to find is any sort of converging trees, if they all go sort of in like a similar sort of line, or if they cross over or anything like that. Just something of interest, or maybe a particularly interesting tree. And this forest does have a good variety of trees. There's old oaks in here, beeches, there's a few larches dotted around. I mean, it's just you know, an endless sort of choice really. But to try and find a clean composition, proving quite difficult in here. But hopefully we've you know, sort of winkled out a few of them. Well, we've had a reasonable morning, I think. You know, the light has been a bit sort of on and off really, but I think we've managed to nail a couple of shots here. So I'll stick these shots up. Let me know what you think in the comments. Love to hear from you. Well, I hope you guys have enjoyed the wild garlic forest today. It's been a really, really nice shoot. I've loved coming out here. It's one of my favourite things to shoot. Absolutely stunning forest, beautiful wild garlic everywhere in full swing. Can't be too bad. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It really does help the video to get out there. If you're not a subscriber, please do consider subscribing. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. I'll see you next time.